This massive 18-liter Mercedes diesel is a dead giant. After decades of hauling impossible loads across brutal roads, it has finally given out. The oil is baked. The iron is scarred. Most experts would send this straight to the scrapyard. But inside this muddy outdoor workshop, a small team of mechanics is about to attempt the impossible. They are going to tear this monster down to its bare bones and resurrect it entirely by hand. Moving this block requires raw physical leverage. The men push it safely into the mud and step in with heavy wrenches. They break the torque on the cylinder head covers, and what they find inside tells the story of its death. The rocker arms are choked in degraded, burnt sludge, a clear sign of severe, long-term abuse. They move to the fuel injection pump, the heart of a mechanical diesel. The technicians extract it with surgical precision. They carefully disconnect the rigid lines and lift the heavy pump away. With the fueling system gone, they strip out the delicate push rods by hand. These parts have mated wear patterns. If they get mixed up now, the engine won't run right. They must be organized.
With the top end stripped, the crew tears into the heavy iron armor, exhaust manifolds, the massive clutch plate, the timing gears. Everything is unbolted, drained, and ripped away. The men work in a quiet, practiced rhythm, stripping the giant piece by piece. But the real answer to why it died is still hiding deep inside the block.
A mechanic cracks the tight seal on the cylinder head. He lifts it away, exposing the piston faces. And then they find it. The fatal blow, a deep crack right down the cylinder liner. Pressurized coolant flooded the crankcase. That was the end of the road. To get to the bottom end, the crew rolls the massive block into the mud. They strip away the oil pan and break the torque on the main bearing caps. Two men struggle to steady the massive crankshaft as they hoist it straight up and out of the block. They examine the journals. Years of contaminated oil have carved deep scars into the metal. This crank is going to require precision regrinding just to survive.
The teardown accelerates. The heavy camshaft is drifted out. To fix those cracked liners, The team brings out a heavy-duty extraction tool. It's pure, brutal force against decades of rust. The failed liners are dragged out into the light, taking the pistons with them. Finally, a mechanic drives out the last internal bearings with a heavy hammer. The Giant has been stripped to its bare bones. Destroying it was the easy part. Bringing it back to life will be the ultimate test. Looking at this chaotic graveyard of parts, the real work begins. Every single component is choked in abrasive sludge. Rebuilding a diesel isn't just about heavy lifting. It requires patience. The men plunge the parts into a chemical bath. Armed with stiff brushes, they manually scrub decades of baked-on grit. There are no shortcuts here, just hours of raw, grueling manual labor.
Then, the bare iron block takes center stage. The mechanics scrub the internal cavities, focusing quietly on the main bearing saddles and cylinder liner seats. These tolerances are measured in thousandths of an inch. A clean saddle ensures the crankshaft sits perfectly level. They hoist the massive casting onto a truck bed and blast it with high-pressure water. Every hidden oil galley is flushed out until the water runs completely clear. But the most fascinating part of this resurrection is how they treat the aluminum pistons. They don't just wash them, they boil them. The pistons are dropped into a massive cauldron filled with chemicals, suspended directly over a roaring open fire. The extreme heat safely expands the aluminum. while the boiling chemicals soften the rock-hard carbon compacted inside the piston ring grooves. A technician pulls a steaming hot piston from the fire. While the metal is still hot, he rapidly scrapes out the ring channels. It's a race against the cooling metal.
As the pistons cool, they receive one final hand wash in soapy water. Just look at this transformation. Hours ago, this was destined for the scrapyard. Now, it is a collection of gleaming precision components. The giant has been purified. The foundation is set. Reassembly begins. The mechanics start with the new cylinder liners. They inspect the rubber O-rings, sliding them carefully into place. These small seals keep the coolant separated from the oil. The liners are lubricated and pushed into the block. The hardware is torqued to exact factory specifications, creating an even clamping force across the iron. Then, the crankshaft returns. The deep, ugly scars have been precision grounded away. It now holds a flawless, mirror-like finish. Two men lift the massive steel spine. They apply a thick layer of assembly oil to the bearing shells. This film of oil protects the metal during the first few seconds of life. Next is the camshaft. It slides through its tunnel, with every lobe hand-coated in oil. As the timing gear is mounted, the mechanic carefully aligns the marks. Timing is everything.
The crankshaft is lowered into its final resting place. The main bearing caps are threaded by hand and driven down with a long torque wrench. After the final click, the mechanic rotates the crank by hand. He's feeling the movement. It spins smoothly. The bearings are perfectly aligned. Now, they prepare the pistons. A technician uses a tool to spread the brittle cast iron rings. He drops them into their grooves and manually staggers the gaps. The entire assembly is dipped in fresh oil.
A ring compressor is wrapped tight. A few gentle taps from a wooden handle, and the piston slides deep into its new liner. They flip the block to secure the bottom end. The connecting rod caps are torqued until the bolts stretch to their exact yield point. Finally, they drive the wrist pins home and seat the retaining clips.
Tandem work. One man clamps the compressor, the other drives the piston. One by one, the chambers are filled. With every rotating assembly linked, the mechanic gives it one last turn. He is feeling for the rhythm of the machine. The drag is even. The movement is smooth. He applies a final torque sequence to the main caps, locking the rotational assembly into place. Every giant needs its lifeblood. The mechanic installs the oil pickup tube, securing the flange tightly. A heavy-duty red gasket is laid perfectly flat. The massive oil pan is lowered into position and bolted down. The bottom end is officially sealed. The short block is now incredibly heavy. The gantry crane groans as it lifts the colossal structure back into the air. Suspended by the crane, the block is ready for its armor. The mechanics lay down multi-layer head gaskets, designed to contain the extreme cylinder pressures of heavy-duty diesel combustion. The cast iron cylinder heads are guided down by steel dowel pins.
Then comes the torque sequence. It's a strict, crisscross pattern. This guarantees the clamping force is perfectly even. Next, the long steel push rods are dropped into the block. Each rod seats quietly into its lifter cup. They hoist the mechanical fuel injection pump, mating its heavy drive gear with the engine's internal timing train.
The intricate plumbing begins. High-pressure steel lines are threaded to the injectors. Moving to the top, the technician begins adjusting the valve lash.
Using just a screwdriver and a wrench, he feels for the exact mechanical clearance between the rocker arms and the valve stems. It requires a master's touch. With clearances locked in, the heavy clutch plate is mounted. The final covers are bolted down, and the electric starter is mated to the flywheel. The build is finished. This is it. Gallons of heavyweight diesel oil are poured into the crankcase. Two massive commercial batteries are wired directly to the starter motor. The mechanics step back. The connection is made. The heavy starter motor groans. It is fighting against massive, freshly built internal compression. Plumes of white and gray smoke puff from the open exhaust ports. The engine struggles to draw fuel through the dry steel lines. It fights. It hesitates.
And then, combustion takes hold. The 18-liter giant roars to life. A steady pulse of dark exhaust smoke punches out of the iron manifolds. The mechanics don't cheer. They listen. They observe the vibration. They feel the mechanical rhythm. The oil pressure is stable. The valves are breathing in perfect harmony. The resurrection is complete. Just weeks ago, this was a scarred, ruined block of iron buried in the mud. Today, it is a fully functional, heavy-duty power plant. Strapped down to the bed of a transport truck, this diesel giant is ready to return to the road. And it was all done right here, by hand.